Heading into week 3 of the fantasy football season, here's a few kickers I would look to add on waivers this week. The first guy's Gano of the New York Giants. So Gano, he had the best fantasy day of any kicker in week 2 here with a huge ball game, 21 fantasy points. He hit 2 plus 50-yarders, 47-yarder, a 36-yarder, and a 23-yarder. So the Giants, they just couldn't find the end zone really in that ball game at the Washington football team. So Gano, week 1, I know he had a poor outing, only an extra point, and week 2 with a big game. And last season we saw some big games out of Gano as a fantasy kicker. So right now he's available in 96% of fantasy leagues. And next week versus a poor Atlanta team, I think this Giant team could get in the red zone a decent amount of times. And Gano could have a decent amount of opportunities to have another good kicking day. The next kicker who looked at on waivers this week's McPherson of the Cincinnati Bengals. And McPherson, the big college kicker last season, and he's been good so far in the first 2 games of his rookie career. A 53-yarder in this game and 2 extra points. And last week he had 11 fantasy points, including a game-winning 52-yarder. So right here in week 3, they versus the division foe is the Cincinnati Bengals at the Pittsburgh Steelers. And McPherson, I think he's going to get more opportunities in that game. That Pittsburgh defense is a defense that bends but don't break. And a lot of field goal kickers get a lot of opportunities, 3 or 4 a game versus this Steelers team. We saw yesterday with Carlson have a good game. And I think McPherson's going to get enough opportunities to be fantasy relevant and be worth a pickup this week. And he's available in 95% of fantasy leagues. The next kicker I looked at is Nick Folk of the New England Patriots. And Nick Folk, I mentioned him last week, is a waiver wire ad on the wire. And this week, another double-digit fantasy day he had at the New York Jets. A 26-yarder, 34-yarder, 43 and a 47-yarder, an extra point, but he also missed an extra point as well. So the first 2 weeks of the season, he's reached double-digit fantasy points here, Nick Folk. And next week, he's got a matchup versus the New Orleans Saints, who's another middle-of-the-pack defense that they're not going to give up many touchdowns, but field goal kickers, they're going to get 2 or 3 opportunities a game. And right now, he's been kicking good. And right now, this Patriot offense isn't the best of offenses as punching the football in the end zone. And right here, Nick Folk, once again, I think he's a good pickup. I think he could reach double digits in week 3, and he's available in 94% of fantasy leagues. The next kicker I've looked at is Dustin Hopkins of the Washington football team. So Hopkins, he's been great so far as well as a kicker. And I mentioned him last week on the waiver wire as a pickup as well. And he's available in 93% of fantasy leagues. So week 1, he had 12 fantasy points. And week 2, in that field goal shootout between him and Gano, he had 14 fantasy points, a 37-yarder, 43, a 46-yarder, and 3 extra points. And here in week 3, he goes to Buffalo, where that's another defense that's not going to give up many touchdowns in the red zone. And we could see Washington settling for a few field goals. And I think Hopkins, once again, definitely can reach double digits in this game at Buffalo. Like I mentioned, they're not going to give up many touchdowns. But also Hopkins, they're going to send them out there from 50+. They got confidence, is this Washington football team. And right now, they're in the thick of things at 1-1 in the NFC East, even though I think it's going to be a poor division. But right here, it's going to be a big game in week 3 of Buffalo. And I think we're going to see opportunities from Hopkins. And he's a kicker I definitely would give an ad this week. And the 5th and final kicker I've looked at is Carlson of the Las Vegas Raiders. So Carlson, he's off to a great start in the first 2 weeks of the season. Week 1, 11 fantasy points versus Baltimore. And week 2 with Pittsburgh, tons of opportunities. And he hit them all in this ball game. A 34-yarder and 3 40-plus yarders from 42, 46, and 47, and 2 extra points. So right here in week 3, another good matchup versus the Miami Dolphins, who give up a lot of points. We saw it to Buffalo here in week 2, 35 points. And this Vegas Raider offense, they're rolling right now, giving Carlson many opportunities. And once again, I think he reaches double digits kicking the football next week versus a weak Miami team in that category. And he's available right now in still a whopping 9% of fantasy leagues. So that's a few kickers I looked to add this week on waivers in week 3 of the fantasy football season.